And so, hello guys, and welcome back. So for today, we have another deck tech that I've kind of think of while browsing some of the list or decks that has resulted for deck ideas that I've been doing, and there have been players have been suggesting through MTG Online and MTG Arena, and I saw this potential. We're also checking on the prices of the mythic cards from the new Tarkir Dragonstorm set, and that this mythic card is the which one? Dragonback Assault. So this is a 6 mana cost Timur color mythic enchantment that when it enters, it deals 3 damage to each creature and its planeswalker, and that whenever a land you control enters, you will create a 4/4 red dragon creature token when flying. So what this Timur does is, of course, we know that we have the support of these colors in the new set, so we try to somewhat take an what would be its potential look. So I've counted this deck, which I call as the Dragonback Assault Ramp mid-range deck for the standard format. So we take a look at the lineup. We have 4 artifacts, 18 creatures, 9 enchantments, 24 lands, 5 sorceries, and I have come up with the initial sideboard, which of course still subject to changes as we explore the set and the metagame of the standard format with the Tarkir Dragonstorm. So starting off with this artifact card. So this is kind of like a good way to have, as we now have 2 mana, this kind of a mana rock per se. Its condition is that it will only need you to cast creature spells from it, and it can be a good utility card later on. This is not just a bad top deck, because it is ability that you can have target creature you control a power 4 greater against trample, and whenever this is combat damage to a player, you will draw a card. So in a way, it makes your dragons more efficient, at the same time going to get your ramp as the deck's main strategy theme. And let's check on the ramp of the creatures. We have another ramp, pseudo ramp here, is Arcane Dragon Ascendant. So this is a 2 mana cost creature human druid that when it enters, you can behold the dragon, so it will create a treasure token, basically creating you another mana source, and that whenever a dragon you control enters, you can put a counter on Sarkhan, and then it will become a dragon in addition to its other types and gains flying. So in a way, it goes with a 2-drop that gets you to ramp, and then later on casting more dragons as it enters, going to pump Sarkhan into making it also another threat in your setup. So you see here we have kind of variants of creatures, but our top end would also be that of the Timur colors with the Orini song and ending. It goes with our ramp strategy because its ability that when it enters, it can deal X damage divided upon any number of target creatures and planeswalkers your opponent's control, where X to the number of lands you control. But it's a good thing because it has this very good ability, protection from white and from black, and also a 10/10 flyer for 8 mana. So let's take a look at our other lineup in this deck. We have the regents of green and blue. So we have 3 copies of the green and 4 copies of the blue Marang River Regent. Let's take a look first at what this creature does. So it has this ability wherein you can augment this to ramp up for basic forest cards. It is basically a cultivate on the stick, but it's late game. If you get a top like this, you get a 4/5 flyer. When it enters, you will gain true life as another dragon also you control enters. So it's basically a very good against aggro decks, gets you also a good 4/5 flyer for this deck. Checking on Marang River Regent is also a card effect with the Omen, Coil and Catch, draw 3 cards and then discard a card. And also in the late game, when it enters, you can bounce up to 2 other target land permanents to their owner hands. So a very good way to also disrupt your opponent's board, where also developing your own with a 6/7 flyer. And the other one of choices here, we have a copy of the Pragmatic Hellkite. So this creature enters, you can destroy target non-basic land or opponent controls, basically destroying a mana land or any other relevant mana in its control, or search a basic land of card, but it will be tapped with stun counter. But given this one is a 4/5 flyer for 4, is basically a very good value in this kind of build. And we also have mentioned Terror of the Peaks. This is the printing from yesterday, but we look at its current. Which is basically in the OTG or at Lost Junction. It gives you the ability that when a creature enters, it can deal damage equal to its power to any target. Basically, a good way to clock out your opponent's life total, as well as having a 5/4 flyer that can be costly to target by your opponent by making them pay 3 life to be able to deal with this creature. And we have considered also Twin Flame Tyrant, which is another dragon from Foundations. This is ability that source of control will deal damage on opponent or permanent their control. It will deal double damage to that instead. And also a good way, a 3/5 flyer, which gets you a good clock if you will be able to curve out with your other creatures. You can just imagine 2 of these cards into the battlefield gets you some of the shenanigans that can deal damage and finish off your opponents as quick as possible. We have also considered only 2 copies of the Hunt Woods, which I got also a good ramp, but also gets us a shenanigans later on with another card that I will show you in a bit. But it's a good way. You can have impending 4. You get an everywhere token that is able basic type and basically giving you an extra mana on your turn 3 and can ramp into a turn 5 or a turn 4 creatures or any of this needed kind of setup. And let's go on the main setup of this. Aside from, of course, the Dragonback Assault, which is also a good creature choice in the late game, we have some shenanigans with some Dragonstorm enchantments introduced by the new set. So we have 4 copies of Encroaching Dragonstorm. It enters, search the library for up to 2 basic lands, put them in the battlefield tab, and whenever a dragon you control enters, you can return this enchantment to its owner's hand. So basically you get to bounce this one and have another value on the next turns. We're also filtering out your library for any of the basic lands in the process. We have also Reaching Dragonstorm, which gets you to have a double cast, because if it enters, exile card from the top card library and you exile an unland, and you may cast it without paying its mana cost if its mana value is 8 or less. You can basically look at here that your highest mana cost is 8. So all of these are basically covered by this Dragonstorm, and I only considered 1 because we still have a lot of other shenanigans that we may need, but that we might accidentally hit with this card. So be careful that we should be able to set this up in the long game, wherein we be able to filter out most of our mana creatures and have a value out of this. But anyhow, you can still, if there's some no other options, for example, you can cast this one basically, but you still get the value later on as your dragon control enters, and you may return this enchantment to its owner's hand. Any of the dragons that you can hit from this lineup. So that is your enchantments. Before we go to the lands in the sideboard, we check out the sorcery, since we need to be able to expect aggro and other good decks to feature decks in the metagame. So we need this one, and as our main deck removal, and also can deal with artifacts with mana by less. I've heard that the synthesizer deck has come out improved with the new cards, and is considered now to be one of the maybe popular deck in the metagame. So we have a main deck answer for those decks, which we can basically cover to destroy each of the artifacts with mana value 3 or less with this card. And we also considered 2 copies of Hermagation. As you've noticed, the Overlord everywhere token would be our main source for this domain creation, wherein you will create a 3/3 green beast creature token for its basic land type you control. And basically, if you're not going there early, you can just pay 2 to discard this. You will gain 3 life, and you can search your library for a basic land, thereby fixing your mana curve and making sure that you can play your 3rd land in the process. And looking to the lands, you see basically a lot of basics. We have 6 forest, 3 islands, and 5 mountain. And I've chosen some of the one of, and also considered these checklands, Botanical Sanctum and Copperline Gorge as our mana fix early on. You also considered Carpus and Forest, but our late game would also goes with having a Kisla village in play that gets you to surveil, and Mist Reis village, which also make sure that your next spell can't be countered on this kind of setup in case of the random matchups against mid-range or other decks with counter spells in the main deck. Now we check on the sideboard. Do take note that this is just a rough estimate and based this on the recent sets that have these cards for green and blue as well as red. So we know that mono red aggro is still a very menacing matchup. So we need to prepare early on before we be able to set up our dragons. We need to make sure that we would be able to prevent their board from developing. So we have 3 torch on the towers as the sideboard, as well as a copy of Ill-Time Explosion to support our brotherhoods, and so for this deck that we can gain, as well as we can also have these additional sideboards. For example, Jungle Feedback, in case you gain life, you can exile graveyards and also can destroy artifact or enchantments. That's one copy, but for this one we can use Obstinate Ballot, which is also useful against the Pixie decks because of their discard effects. You can discard one for free, at the same time you get a 4/4 body that can gain you 4 life. So in this deck, against the mono red, basically Torch Tower, Ill-Time Explosion, Obstinate Ballot to your sideboard. For the shenanigans of the enchantments, such as Omniscience, for example, we have counter spells to support that. So now you can see here this one, Dispelling Exhale is like a new counter spell that Behold the Dragons. And in support of that is your long game, late game negates, has hard counter for them. Also, if needed, you can destroy shenanigans of creatures with flying, enchantments, and also get you to draw a card and create a food token in any instance if needed. And that for the Oculus, for example, in the Omniscience decks, we have Ghost Vacuums to make sure that the shenanigans in the graveyards are very much prevented by this card. And later on, you can also exile cards or exile your dragons and pay 6 to sacrifice this by creating extra card that are copies of those creature card that was exiled by this artifact. So overall, I think this sideboard is still looks refined enough for those matchups, but of course we would still be able to do some preparation for other kinds of new decks that we would be having. And last but not least, our deck stats, of course, is very important. Costing is more of green and red with only blue as a splash. As you will notice, we need to make sure we have turn 3 Brotherhoods and the setup, and some of these are also double color, double red. For example, Tyrant or the Pix, double green, the Regent and the Huntwoods, and those are pretty much those cards that you need to take note. Production is pretty much good. Red and green still prioritize here. Don't mind the other colors here with black. And average mana cost is very high. 4.53 is the typical for a deck with the late game plan. But of course, we are theme of the ramp. And now that ramp decks are very much composed of ramp spells to make sure that you can get ahead of your mana and cast these big ass body dragons as early as possible. And check on the tokens. We have Peace token for the Herd Migration, Dragon token for the Dragon Assault. The Everywhere token is needed combo with this. Food token, I think, for the Paw Patch, and Treasure token for Sarkhan's ability of beholding dragons. So overall, I think this deck, if you go with the theme and appreciating the deck for Timor and the Tarkir Dragonstorm new set, I would suggest to have this one play out, though I think it would still be under the category of Tier 2. But if you really want to try new cards and from new set, you can still basically try this out. This kind of a deck gameplay that we can use and appreciate the return of the Khans or the Tarkir Dragons in Standard. So I guess that's it, guys. This is again the Dragonback Assault Ramp deck tech. You can see the list. I'll post it in the description. The link for the Arcade Deck website you can see here, and you can import and do some also playtesting with a playtester. And you might also try this one to copy it in your actual decks if you have the cards you to utilize in your MTG Arena or MTG Online account. Then feel free to do so. So again, guys, thank you for watching this another standard deck tech. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you on the next video.